Have you ever met someone and felt recognized before a single word was spoken, as if something ancient inside you had already said yes? There are forces in human experience that operate so quietly they are almost impossible to explain, yet they shape our lives more powerfully than anything visible. One of these forces is the invisible frequency that exists beneath personality, words, and behavior. It is not something we consciously choose. It is something we resonate with. When two people align at this level, the connection feels immediate, natural, and strangely familiar, as if recognition has occurred before thought has time to interfere. This frequency does not belong to the intellect. The mind tries to analyze it, to categorize it, to explain it away as coincidence or chemistry. But the experience resists logic. It bypasses reasoning and moves directly into the nervous system, into the emotional core, into the deepest layers of the psyche. This is why such encounters often feel calm and intense at the same time. There is excitement, but there is also relief, as if something inside no longer needs to prove itself. The invisible frequency is formed long before the moment of meeting. It develops through lived experience, unprocessed emotion, inherited patterns, and the silent shaping of the inner world. Every individual carries a unique psychological rhythm, shaped by what was expressed and what was suppressed. When two rhythms harmonize, the effect is unmistakable. Conversation flows without effort. Silence feels safe rather than awkward. There is an unspoken sense of being seen without explanation. What makes this frequency so powerful is that it does not depend on similarity at the surface. Two people can be very different in temperament, background, or life path and still resonate deeply. The alignment happens below identity. It happens where values, wounds, and longings intersect. One person may embody what the other has disowned. One may reflect courage where the other holds fear. This complementary dynamic creates a pull that feels magnetic and necessary. Because this frequency operates unconsciously, it often disrupts established patterns. It challenges existing relationships, beliefs, and self-concepts. The ego resists it because it cannot control it. The mind wants predictability, but resonance demands honesty. When the invisible frequency is activated, defenses weaken. Masks slip. Emotional truths rise to the surface. This can feel destabilizing, especially for those who have built their identity on control or distance. The reason this connection feels so rare is not because it is mystical, but because most people are disconnected from their own inner rhythm. They adapt to expectations, suppress instinct, and numb sensitivity in order to survive. When someone appears who is still in contact with their depth, the contrast is felt immediately. The psyche recognizes authenticity the way a tuning fork recognizes sound. It vibrates in response, even if the conscious mind is unprepared. This frequency also explains why certain people remain psychologically present long after physical contact ends. Distance does not weaken resonance, because the bond was never dependent on proximity. It exists in the unconscious where images, emotions, and meanings live independently of time. Dreams, sudden memories, and emotional reactions are signs that the frequency is still active, still influencing the inner landscape. However, resonance does not guarantee ease. It often brings unresolved material to the surface. When two people share a deep frequency, they activate each other's shadows as much as their strengths. Old wounds, unmet needs, and unintegrated aspects of the self rise into awareness. This is not a flaw in the connection. It is its purpose. The invisible frequency does not exist to comfort the ego, but to invite growth. Ignoring this invitation leads to tension and confusion. Trying to rationalize the connection away only intensifies its presence. The psyche does not respond to denial. It responds to integration. When individuals begin to explore what the connection reveals about themselves, the experience becomes less overwhelming and more meaningful. The frequency stabilizes as awareness increases. Ultimately, the invisible frequency is not about another person. It is about alignment with the self. The other simply acts as a catalyst, a mirror that reflects what has been waiting to be acknowledged. When this is understood, the connection loses its power to destabilize and gains the power to transform, becoming less about attachment and more about recognition, less about possession and more about resonance, less about fate and more about the quiet unfolding of inner truth. Some connections are not chosen by the mind but remembered by the psyche, and resistance only makes them louder. There are moments in life when you encounter someone and feel almost instantly that this meeting was not a product of chance. The mind may search for reasons, common interests, shared experiences, compatible personality, but the feeling of recognition runs deeper than any rational explanation. It is as if the psyche remembers before the conscious self even registers the encounter. Some connections are not chosen by the mind, they are remembered by the soul. And this remembrance carries a weight and clarity that cannot be denied. This kind of recognition bypasses deliberation. No amount of reasoning or planning can manufacture it. It arises spontaneously, often catching the conscious mind off guard. You may find yourself drawn to a person before understanding why, sensing a familiarity that feels older than your current life. The effect is disarming because it challenges the ego's assumption that we are in control of our choices. In reality, some of the most meaningful connections are orchestrated by deeper layers of consciousness that operate independently of surface desires. The experience of recognition beyond choice often manifests as an uncanny sense of already knowing. You may feel understood without speaking, or find that your thoughts are anticipated before they are expressed. In some cases, even physical presence or body language resonates in a way that feels preordained. It is a subtle, almost invisible force that validates what has long existed within the inner world, but remained unacknowledged. The psyche recognizes a reflection of itself in the other person, and this recognition can be both comforting and unsettling. Because these connections arise from the unconscious, they often challenge the expectations of ordinary life. They may appear at inconvenient times or in unexpected circumstances, defying logic and social norms. The conscious mind may resist them, attempting to rationalize the intensity of the experience or the sudden closeness it generates. Yet no amount of resistance can erase the sense of familiarity. The bond persists precisely because it is rooted in recognition, not preference. This recognition is deeply tied to shared psychological patterns. Two individuals may carry complementary aspects of experience, archetypal structures, or unresolved inner material. When such elements align, the connection transcends surface-level attributes. It is not about similarity in hobbies, education, or social status. It is about alignment at the level of unconscious dynamics. One person may hold what the other has disowned or suppressed, create a magnetic resonance that the conscious mind cannot fully control. Such encounters often provoke strong emotional reactions. There is an intensity that can feel thrilling, disorienting, or even frightening. The unconscious is activating patterns that demand acknowledgement, forcing both individuals to confront parts of themselves that have been hidden or denied. Recognition beyond choice does not always lead to comfort. It can generate turbulence precisely because it reflects a truth that the ego may not be ready to accept. Paradoxically, the most enduring connections formed in this way are not dependent on deliberate effort. The conscious mind cannot manufacture them through planning or manipulation, nor can it easily sever them. Attempts to control or force these bonds often distort their natural rhythm. They exist independently of intention because they are guided by an invisible architecture of the psyche. The recognition that initiates them is a signal that the connection has a deeper purpose, one that often involves growth, reflection, and transformation. Distance and time do not necessarily weaken this type of bond. Even when circumstances prevent regular contact, the recognition persists internally. Memories, dreams, and subtle emotional cues keep a connection alive. The psyche continues to resonate with the alignment established in that initial meeting. In this sense, recognition beyond choice is not a fleeting phenomenon. It is a lasting imprint on the inner world, shaping perception, intuition, and emotional orientation. Ultimately, this form of recognition points to the limits of conscious control. We often assume that the choices we make determine the trajectory of our lives, yet there are forces operating beneath awareness that guide us toward meaningful encounters. Some people enter our lives not because we selected them, but because they are needed to complete a pattern, to awaken an insight, or to mirror what has been waiting for acknowledgement. The intensity of the recognition is a reminder that some aspects of human experience cannot be planned, coerced, or ignored. The people who affect us most are never random. They carry the missing parts of ourselves we were afraid to face. Human beings are naturally drawn to reflection. We seek it not only in glass and water, but also in the faces and minds of others. There is an undeniable force at work when we encounter someone whose presence evokes a deep recognition, a sense of knowing that transcends words. This is what can be called the mirror of the soul. In these encounters, the other person functions less as an external being and more as a reflective surface, showing us aspects of ourselves that we may have overlooked, denied, or even feared. The mirror of the soul operates at a level that the conscious mind rarely controls. While we interact with people on the basis of personality, interest, or social roles, the psyche engages with a far subtler process. It perceives patterns of energy, unspoken emotions, and archetypal structures. When two people meet and resonate in this way, it is not coincidence. It is a meeting of inner worlds. One person reflects what the other has hidden or ignored, offering both opportunity and challenge. This reflection is often unsettling. We are drawn to see ourselves clearly, yet clarity is uncomfortable. The other person may act as a mirror for our strengths, illuminating our potential, courage, or for our shadows, revealing fears, insecurities, and unresolved trauma. In either case, the reflection cannot be ignored. The psyche responds automatically, often with a mixture of fascination and resistance. There is an instinctive recognition, a sense that the mirror is accurate, even when it is difficult to accept. The mirror of the soul also explains why certain relationships feel inevitable. These connections often defy logic, social convention, and even conscious desire. Two people may meet at a moment when life seems ordinary, yet the resonance is immediate and unmistakable. Conversation may flow effortlessly, or it may remain minimal, yet the awareness of each other's presence is profound. It is not similarity that creates this bond, but alignment at a deeper psychological level, a recognition of patterns, needs, and potentials. What makes this mirror so powerful is its ability to catalyze growth. When someone reflects back what we have denied, we are faced with choices. We can recoil and avoid, or we can engage and integrate. Those who resist may experience tension, projection, or repeated conflict as the reflection continues to surface until it is acknowledged. Those who engage experience transformation, gradually integrating the reflected aspects into consciousness. In this sense, the mirror is not merely a passive reflection, it is an active agent of self-awareness. The mirror of the soul does not only reflect the individual self, it also reflects the collective patterns of human experience. Archetypal themes such as love, loss, power, and transformation are often embedded in these encounters. The other person may embody characteristics that speak to universal dynamics, offering insight not only into personal patterns, but also into the broader rhythms of life. Recognition in this context is both intimate and universal, connecting the individual psyche to a larger web of meaning. This reflective process explains why some relationships feel so intense from the very beginning. They awaken dormant aspects of the psyche and activate emotional responses that are disproportionate to the immediate circumstances. The intensity is not a problem. It is evidence of the mirror functioning correctly. It signals that the interaction is meaningful on a level beyond conscious preference. To dismiss it as mere coincidence is to overlook the subtle guidance of the psyche, which seeks wholeness through resonance, confrontation, and integration. The mirror of the soul can manifest in many forms. It may appear in friendships, romantic connections, familiar relationships, or even brief encounters with strangers who leave a lasting impression. What matters is not the duration or context of the interaction, but the depth of reflection it triggers. The mirror requires presence, honesty, and willingness to see what is revealed. Without these qualities, the resonance may be overlooked or misinterpreted, and the opportunity for growth may pass unnoticed. Engaging with the mirror of the soul is both a challenge and a privilege. It asks for courage to face what has been hidden, patience to understand what is complex, and humility to accept what cannot be controlled. The rewards, however, are profound. By encountering our own reflections in others, we gain insight, clarity, and the possibility of integration. We begin to recognize the parts of ourselves that were fragmented, disowned, or misunderstood. And in doing so, we discover a deeper sense of coherence, meaning, and presence in life distance, silence even. Conflict cannot dissolve a bond that was formed below consciousness. Human consciousness has long been conditioned to perceive the world through boundaries between self and other, near and far, present and absent. From birth, the ego constructs a sense of individuality by defining itself against what is outside. Yet beneath this surface perception lies a deeper truth. The separations we experience are often illusory. At the level of the psyche, true connection transcends distance, circumstance, and even time. Bonds formed in depth cannot be undone by mere physical absence or social constraint. Consider the experience of encountering someone whose presence resonates profoundly with your inner world. Even if the interaction is brief, the sense of alignment can linger. You may feel their influence long after they have departed, as though a part of you has become attuned to theirs. This resonance is not dependent on ongoing contact. It is rooted in the shared structure of unconscious patterns. It operates below the level of conscious choice, connecting minds, hearts in ways that the surface world cannot measure or control. Separation becomes most painful when the ego insists on its boundaries. We imagine that distance, silence, or conflict equates to disconnection, and we react with anxiety or longing. But this is a misperception. The psyche does not recognize these external barriers as absolute. When a bond is formed at the level of shared depth, it persists independently of circumstance. Emotional echoes, memories, and subtle intuitions maintain the alignment, reminding us that what is connected at the core remains connected regardless of apparent separation. This illusion of separation is also evident in the experience of time. Relationships that seem distant in years may feel immediate upon reunion, as if no interval has passed. The shared frequency of two souls carries forward, unaffected by chronological gaps. Similarly, moments of intense connection may leave traces that influence future interaction, guiding choices and perceptions long after direct contact has ceased. In this way, the psyche operates outside the linear constraints imposed by the conscious mind. The illusory nature of separation is closely tied to the concept of resonance. Two individuals may reflect complementary aspects of one another, activating strengths, shadows, and unmet needs. This interaction occurs in a space beyond surface awareness, a domain where the psyche recognizes alignment and responds accordingly. Physical absence cannot sever this connection because the bond is not held in space or time, it is held in shared depth. Attempts to control, restrict, or forget the relationship may intensify its presence precisely because the underlying alignment remains intact. Psychological projection further reinforces the illusion of separation. When one projects an internal need or longing onto another person, it can create the perception of distance or absence as a form of punishment or misalignment. Yet the projection itself reveals the continuity of connection. The psyche is responding to patterns that have already been established, demonstrate that even in perceived separation, the threads of resonance continue to operate. This is why moments of insight, dream encounters, or sudden emotional response can revive a sense of closeness as if the supposed distance were never real. Another aspect of this illusion emerges in relationships that undergo physical or emotional disruption. Breakups, migrations, and long periods without communication often feel like an end. Yet, when the alignment between individuals is deep, the impact of these events is not absolute. The influence of one upon the other persists in ways that shape choices, perceptions, and inner life, memories, emotional habits, and subtle psychological cues maintain. A continuity that challenges the notion of permanent separation. The mind often seeks reassurance through errands, phone calls, meetings, texts, or shared experiences. While these can reinforce a sense of connection, they are not the source of it. True resonance exists independently, sustained by inner alignment rather than external validation. Recognizing this shifts the perspective from fear and longing to acceptance and understanding. Separation, then, is not a measure of disconnection, but a reflection of the ego's limited perception. Even in the absence of contact, the influence of deep connection can catalyze growth and transformation. Each person carries the other within their inner world, often guiding choices and self-understanding in subtle ways. The unseen bond fosters reflection, healing, and the unfolding of latent potential. What the conscious mind interprets as separation may, in fact, be the precise condition that allows the inner connection to strengthen, free from dependency and surface attachment. Separation is, therefore, less a fact of reality and more a perception shaped by consciousness. The psyche knows no true distance when two frequencies align. Bonds formed in depth endure across space, time, and circumstance, persisting quietly in the unconscious, influencing thought, emotion, and growth, and reminding us that the sense of being apart is often a construct of the ego rather than a measure of truth. True connection is not maintained by attachment, but by inner growth that keeps both souls tuned to the same depth. Connections that endure, that feel unshakable, are rarely sustained by mere presence or proximity. Even when two souls resonate deeply, alignment alone is not enough to maintain the bond. Resonance initiates the connection, but ongoing engagement, conscious and unconscious effort, keeps it alive. This is the work that goes beyond attraction, beyond friendship, beyond habit. It is the cultivation of inner depth, awareness, and authenticity that allows a shared frequency to persist over time. The first element of this work is self-awareness. True connection thrives when each individual takes responsibility for their inner world. Without introspection, the bond risks being shaped by projection rather than reality. One may attribute qualities, motives, or intentions to the other that are not theirs, clouding the clarity of the connection. By attending to personal patterns, triggers, and shadows, each person ensures that the resonance remains genuine, untainted by unresolved inner material. This is not a passive process. It demands honesty, courage, and the willingness to face discomfort. Communication, both verbal and non-verbal, is another facet of maintaining the bond. But it is not simply the act of talking that matters. It is the quality of presence, the attention given, and the intentionality behind expression. Misunderstandings can easily arise, even in the deepest connections, if fails to articulate or reflect on what is being experienced internally. In relationships that operate at profound levels of frequency, subtle cues, moods, and emotional undercurrents carry meaning. Attuning to these signals requires mindfulness and patience, a willingness to listen beyond words and observe without judgment. Flexibility and acceptance are equally critical. No two individuals evolve along identical paths, and even resonant souls encounter periods of divergence. Life circumstances, personal growth, and shifts in priorities test the endurance of any bond. The work of keeping the connection alive involves allowing space for these differences while sustaining the underlying alignment. It is the capacity to embrace change in the other without reacting defensively or withdrawing. Understanding that the bond is not a static entity but a living, evolving dynamic. The integration of shadow material is perhaps the most demanding yet essential aspect of this work. Deep connections often serve as mirrors, reflecting aspects of ourselves we may prefer to ignore. This reflection can be uncomfortable, sometimes even painful, yet Avoiding it risks distorting the resonance, creating tension, or weakening the bond. By confronting one's own projections, insecurities, and unacknowledged impulses, the individual honors the authenticity of the connection. The work of integration transforms the energy that could divide into a force that strengthens, allowing the bond to operate with clarity rather than unconscious interference. Another crucial component is reciprocity, that is conscious rather than transactional. In relationships of resonance, giving and receiving are not balanced by obligation or social convention, but by mutual respect and acknowledgement. The work of sustaining the bond involves recognizing when support, attention, or understanding is needed and responding without expectation of reward. This reciprocity is rooted in presence and empathy, a recognition that the bond itself is nourished by the consistent effort to remain attuned to the other. Patience and timing are also indispensable. Bonds at the level of shared frequency are sensitive to pressure. Forcing closeness, rushing understanding, or demanding immediate alignment often backfires. The work that sustains these connections requires allowing the natural unfolding of interaction, trusting in the intelligence of the shared frequency, and permitting growth at a pace that honors the integrity of both individuals. The bond is strengthened not by control, but by attentiveness and respect for its own rhythm. Reflection on the shared journey further reinforces the connection, periodically recognizing the growth, challenges, and insights that the bond has catalyzed creates a sense of continuity and appreciation. This practice does not solidify the bond in rigidity, but rather celebrate its dynamic nature, reinforcing commitment to presence and alignment. It allows both individuals to see not only what has been reflected back to them, but also how the interaction has facilitated inner development. Finally, the work that keeps a deep bond alive is an ongoing engagement with the mystery of connection itself. It is the acknowledgement that resonance is not static, that love, understanding, and recognition require tending, and that the deepest alignments flourish only when both individuals are willing to cultivate presence, authenticity, and growth simultaneously. This work demands awareness, vulnerability, patience, and courage, and it transforms the bond from a fleeting encounter into an enduring, living relationship that continues to evolve, expand, and influence both inner and outer worlds.